Hello, everyone. Just a quick reminder how to get to the handouts within CalSmart. If you do not have a CalSmart login or need a link to CalSmart, we have put one in the chat. If you still need to register, please do so. A member of our team will try and get you approved, but we cannot guarantee it'll be done today during the training. If you are in CalSmart, once you have accessed the local streets and roads tab within CalSmart dashboard, after you've logged on, you will then go to the help and resources tab on that dash, and that will take you to all of our handouts that are uploaded into the website. And there you will find today's technical training handout. And with that, let me go ahead and get started. Again, this is the Local Streets and Roads Funding Program Annual Expenditure Report Technical Training. My name is Alicia Soquera. I am the program manager for the funding program here at the California Transportation Commission. I am also being assisted with Celeste Almanza and Leanne Bachan, our analysts for the program, who are providing assistance throughout. They will be manning the Q&A chat as well as the raised hands should there be any questions throughout today's training. We would also like to thank each and every one of you for taking the time out of your day to attend this training. I know for a lot of you, it may be a refresher. For others, this is going to be brand new. And we also do have a new feature that we are rolling out that you will get to see during the live presentation. So technical training objectives, we're going to do a brief schedule review for the program, overview of the program itself, preparation for reporting, the reporting detail that is required, how to navigate CalSmart, and then we'll finish with the frequently asked questions and resources. As a reminder, we will be stopping throughout today's training for you to ask any of your questions. And yes, we are recording this. And so one of the two trainings that we have done today will then be posted in the coming days and made available to everyone online. So the annual expenditure program schedule, per the 2021 adopted guidelines, the following is our annual reporting schedule for the Local Streets and Roads Funding Program. So early October is when we tend to hold our technical trainings. And so just always remember that during this time period of the year, you want to keep a lookout for the technical trainings because this is when we are providing them. CalSmart, we usually open our reporting system mid-October, but we're trying a little something different this year. An early opening. So if you've gone into the system, you will see that you are actually able to access the expenditure reporting and create your expenditure report right now in CalSmart. Our hope and intention is that you can follow along and ask questions about navigating through and what some of the features look like should you need the assistance as we're doing the training today. CalSmart system does close for reporting come December 1st of every year. This is important that you remember this. December 1, we have quite a few holidays in the month of November. So there's the state and federal holidays that do occur in which you are not going to have reporting dates. Again, this is why we have opened up the system earlier this year. We're trying to help you guys meet your needs of reporting and have adequate time to do so. Additionally, we've worked out some things within CalSmart that is allowing us not to overlap with some other reporting programs anymore, as well as not, and hopefully not bog down the system so that it crashes, because we have experienced that in the past. So a quick overview of our program. In order to receive an apportionment from the state controller's office on a monthly basis for every fiscal year, a city or county must submit to the commission an adopted list of projects proposed to be funded with these program funds. As many of you are very much so aware, you've just done this. July 1 was our due date for the 25-26 fiscal year. And our September 30th subsequent eligibility due date has already come and gone. We are taking action next week to adopt our subsequent list. Those funds just started going out in the month of September. So again, everything's kind of on a little bit of a delay, which can cause some confusion come reporting. Pursuant to Streets and Highways Code Section 2034, and please note, road maintenance and rehabilitation account funds are the same as local streets and roads funds. We refer to them pretty seamlessly throughout. And so just please note that RMRA and LSR, as we're referring to that funding, it's the same thing. Pursuant to the Highway Code Section 2034B, for each fiscal year in which funding apportionment is received, you must also, cities and counties must report to the commission all RMRA funds spent in the fiscal year and provide project detail updates for those projects intended to be funded. So what does that mean? You're going to report out on what you received every year and what the status is of your prior projects proposed, your prior reported projects, if they're still ongoing. If you have additional funds that need to be reported on projects that were completed, this is your time to do so. It is not your time, however, to update the most recent list that you have just submitted for 25-26. That is not the time. That would happen in a subsequent year. That is for that specific reporting fiscal year. So project-related expenditures and statuses for reporting. This is to help you prepare for reporting. Please note that you're collecting all expenditure related data and statuses based on the project activity recorded within the reporting fiscal year. So what is that? July 1 to June 30th is within the reporting year, right? Some of you may operate on a different fiscal year schedule. What your operating fiscal year schedule is not relevant to what is the reporting fiscal year schedule that is required by this program. And that is written in statute and then adopted in our guidelines. There's no wiggle room around that. Okay. You're going to report invoices paid using RMRA funds for the work performed within the fiscal year. You're recording any project list, scope, location, or schedule changes that were made throughout the reporting fiscal year. Again, I'm going to say reporting fiscal year because you are now reporting in the rears, right? You've already gone almost halfway into the new fiscal year by the time you're reporting the prior fiscal year's activities. So this can get confusing. It can cause and generate some problems for some folks as we go through the reporting process. So I just want to keep reiterating that. So how else can you help prepare for the reporting period? We want you to use the CalSmart system to export the following list. I cannot recommend this enough. It will be very helpful and useful to you, especially the larger the list you have, the more you're going to rely on this. By using CalSmart, the CalSmart system, you can export your prior fiscal year reportable project list. So that is what you reported for 23-24, right? And these are the steps that you will take in order to get to it. And then you also want to report your current fiscal year list of projects proposed for funding. So that is the 24-25. That is what is considered the current, right? Using those lists, you're going to track and update any information as appropriate for the reporting purposes. Report on all newly proposed projects. This means projects that did not appear in your project list. And this can be projects from your project list or new projects that came up. So what often happens is that there are new projects that will come up throughout the reporting year that were not previously adopted or reported on because they are new priorities, and you have the ability to add those projects to your list during the expenditure reporting period. Only do that if they are active in that reporting year. If you're adding projects that are now priorities, but didn't show up until your 25-26 list, they're not going to be active until 25-26. Don't add them in this point. You've just then created more reporting requirements for yourself and a little bit of a headache. RMRA funds spent in the reporting year include. So this is where we're going to break down what that means. Any remaining RMRA funds from a prior year that were spent in the current reporting fiscal year. So any of your carryover funding that wasn't spent in a prior year and you still held on to it and ended up by spending it in the current reporting year, that's what you want to make sure that you're capturing. You're also going to capture any of your funds that were spent in of RMRA apportionments that you received in the reporting fiscal year. For some reason, there are some folks that see these two things differently. They are not. So please make sure that you are actually reporting all of your RMRA funds, whether it came from a prior year or a current year, you're still reporting it out. These apportionments are dispersed by the state controller's office. We do not have control over the amounts. We do not have control over when they are dispersed or collected. These revenues are collected by the state and then they are rectified, sent to the state controller's office, and then the state controller's office applies the formula and disperses them accordingly. Here's the caveat. There's usually about a 6-week lag, which means that you are getting your June payment, or I'm sorry, your July 1 payment. You're receiving that come September, mid-September, right? So the July revenues hit you mid-September. And then the final payment hits by mid-August each year. You must report on the following: any local streets and roads for RMRA funds spent in the reporting year. I know I sound like a broken record because I keep saying it, but it's because this is the most common question we get. So I would like to continue to reiterate that it is funds spent in the reporting year based on cost incurred, right? So if there's invoiceable work that occurred throughout the reporting year, but you don't pay that invoice until September or August, but it was for all the work that was performed in May and June, you're still counting that as RMRA funds spent in that fiscal year. If a jurisdiction has unspent RMRA funds by June 30th of the reporting fiscal year, you're going to indicate the jurisdiction's intent for those funds in the coming fiscal years. This is mainly focusing for those jurisdictions who are reserving their funds and trying to accrue enough in order to deliver a singular project. We see this more for our small rural cities and towns. The activity summary. So where I said you're going to explain your intent, this is a great place for you to be able to do it. The RMRA expenditure activity summary, regardless of your expenditure activity, it's going to be a brief summary that needs to be provided. A lot of times we like to use it as a guide as we're reviewing your reports, but if you are someone who didn't have any activity that year, no funds were spent in that year, and you're just updating project schedules and scopes, things of that nature, give us a brief description as to why that occurred and what we can expect in the coming year. You're also updating all projects proposed in the reporting fiscal year because those need to be accounted for in that current report. All previously reported projects, so everything from 23-24 that was not yet completed, right? So it had a status of in progress, carried over, or forecast. You now need to account and give us an update on those projects. So here's a little bit more of the detail that's required. If a project became active within the reporting year in which RMRA funds were spent but had not been previously reported on nor proposed in the reporting year, so this means it didn't show up on your project proposed list, this didn't show up on your expenditure reporting list on the year prior, you are going to add it as a new project, right? We have a way for you to do that and we'll walk through that. You're also going to identify any project activity that occurred within the fiscal year, and especially those within in which costs were incurred. So 7/1 to 6/30, right? Anytime within that, whatever the activity was, you need to make sure that you are including that information. And again, we're just going to reiterate that you're receiving your funds from September, from September all the way to August. So that means a lot of times what will happen is that if you're not working with your Department of Finance teams, right, and someone in your finance division, you may not realize that those payments that show issued in July and August, that those are to be counted towards the prior fiscal year. Those are not to be attributed to the new fiscal year that you're in. And so a lot of times what we will see is that someone has shorted the amount that they said that they received because it included or did not include those 2 months. So again, all of that's in there. We really just want to push for all of you to remember. And if you have anyone, if it's just the Public Works team right now that's attending this training, please, please, please share the information with your finance division. And if it's only your finance division that's attending this training, please share this with your Public Works counterparts who's also going to be doing the reporting, because you have to work in tandem in order to be able to do this report accurately. So just a quick breakdown on our project status terminology. Completed, pretty self-explanatory. This does not mean that it has to be final closeout. It just means that it has to be overall open to the public, and all major construction has completed. It's usable. And it has to have been done within the fiscal year. So by June 30th, right? You've hit that status. In progress, it just means that it's been active within the year. It doesn't mean that it completed by June 30th. Carried over, this is a project that had no activity in the fiscal year, but is expected to start in the coming fiscal year. Forecasted, we reserve this for those projects that are more than one fiscal year out. A lot of times, again, this is where our rural counterparts are really shining in this area, because they are future forecasting out projects that they have to reserve their funding from year to year in order to be able to deliver said project that they've identified. Now, no longer RMRA funded. These are projects that may have been proposed with the intention of using RMRA funds, but then weren't going to be delivered using the RMRA funds. Something changed, your funding priorities went elsewhere, and so now this is no longer on your list to use RMRA funds for. Now, if you used RMRA funds for this project at some point, but now are no longer using RMRA funds for the project, it is still considered a RMRA funded project. And it should be reported on until the project is completed, right? Even though it was only a small portion, or it may have just been a small portion, it still has RMRA funds in that project that helped deliver it. So we want to know the overall asset that the funding helped to deliver. Additionally, on that matter, if you have a project, we see this more commonly in the pre-construction phase, that's in environmental or design or cost estimating, where you've used RMRA funds to pay for that type of work that was being done, or the overhead costs for that work that was being done, and now you're not moving forward with that project. We will work with you to identify a good way on how to be able to report that out. It's much better than something that would be much better than you just saying no longer RMRA funded. You also have an opportunity to explain why a project is no longer RMRA funded. This is, something that we highlighted in our last training, where a jurisdiction asked exactly this question. We had a project that we proposed, it was on our list, we adopted it, but we had a bunch of cost savings and didn't end up by needing to use our RMRA funds on it. Do we still report that that project was completed? No. You're not reporting to us that it was completed. You're going to report it as no longer RMRA funded, and then explain exactly what he had told us. And just puts that into the project detail, an explanation for why it's being removed, and that's fine. So here's a couple of just project examples. I'm not going to get into the intricacies of it, but this is a great way for you to sort of reference. We give you an activity timeline that the project was active within the fiscal year, it just didn't complete, it incurred costs. And then so what each thing would equal, right? What you would report based on the scenario provided. Again, here's another one, but it's talking about complete, but fine. But final closeout or acceptance and final payment has not occurred. And so you can still report it as complete, and then in subsequent years, or then following subsequent reporting year, if you had additional RMRA funds that need to be captured that were spent in the closeout phase, you would be able to do so there. So this is one that I am going to touch on a little bit more in depth, just because this is something we see come up quite often. So a project was started on July 20th of the current fiscal year that you're in, but it was awarded in April of the reporting fiscal year. How do you report on that? Well, it's considered carried over. It's not going to be in progress because no invoiceable work occurred within that project until after the close of the reporting fiscal year. Everything happened in which an invoice would occur happened after, right? So that's why you're going to call it carried over. So, and here's just a breakdown. These are just the fields that you're going to be filling information in for. So what's the project title? Did you know that on your project where you're going to input project title directly across that from that is a field that says project ID? This is something I would recommend, especially those of you with a large number of projects and those who have multiple people helping with this report, that you create or utilize internally what is your project ID for that project, because sometimes what we see is our jurisdictions will provide a project title to us, put it in the system, and then it's not the same way it's referred to in-house. And so when their counterpart is reporting or someone takes over the reins in the next year and then they're reporting because they don't know that project title, they will create a brand new project to start reporting on. When that's now creating erroneous reporting and duplicate reporting. So we don't want you to do that, right? Make sure that you're making it easier enough for yourself to be able to know what you're reporting on and need to be reporting on while staying consistent with the project title and name that was provided and has been published. Your project component, we get this question of what do we mean by component? So this is construction, pre-construction, or procurement and operational needs. Procurement and operational needs is usually reserved for if you're purchasing a maintenance system to track your maintenance, if you're purchasing equipment or servicing equipment, purchasing materials to be able to deliver work by your own public works labor force, right? So these are the things that we call procurement and operational need, and their eligible use for funds. Project descriptions, we have drop downs that should be able to be used across the board for all of you. Please select what is relevant. If there is a project that does not have a drop down or pre-selected text box that you can utilize to help describe the project, you have options to add additional information or select other. Project location. No, not all 350 segments of the same project need to be reported on individually or called out within the location field. But saying maintenance section 5 or district 5 also isn't going to do the trick, because most of your general population, your constituents and the legislature are not going to know what maintenance district 5 is, right? They won't know how to identify that. So we need to give some sort of descriptor that helps us identify what area in which work is being performed, whether you're calling out a specific neighborhood and then what the parameter and boundary streets are, or if you're calling out your downtown area, whatever it is, right? There's a way for us to do that. Citywide and countywide usually are not going to be accepted except for in pre-construction phase when we're not sure where exactly the locations are going to be, or if it's procurement operational needs. This is a lot of times where we see when your own labor force is used for street sweeping, standard maintenance, and like pothole filling, right? So a lot of times that's where that's going to come up. And so we see that in a lot of annual projects that use their own labor force. So it's not by contract. And so you're not identifying all the locations usually. Then your US congressional district needs to be updated and entered. Your legislative districts, that's Assembly and Senate for the state. Useful life, minimum, maximum, additional elements, which we highlight what those are in the system. It's also identified in our guidelines. Project status. So again, is it complete, in progress, carried over, forecasted, or no longer? RMRA funded. Project and award schedule. So this is what is your project schedule? And then if it was an awarded contract, like when's the award or when was it awarded, right? What RMRA funds were expended. So how much and if applicable, that's where you're going to put your information in there. The estimated overall project cost. We got this question again. Do I have to report all funding sources? Yes, but you don't have to call out the other funding sources. So if a project that you're using $25,000 of RMRA funds for to do a slurry seal project, but the project is a $3 million project, you're not going to say that you completed a slurry seal project for $25,000 total, right? You're going to say we did a slurry seal project for $3 million, in which 25,000 of that was RMRA funded, right? So it was partially funded by RMRA. We were able to see this is the asset delivered with the assistance of the program funds. And then if the project is completed, you're going to identify what those project outcomes or outputs were. So what was delivered as a part of the asset. And this is where we will open it up for questions. Should there be any, please don't hesitate. Next up, we will get into CalSmart navigation. I'm about to send everybody a coffee order just to make sure you're all still awake after lunch. All right, seeing as that there are no questions at this time, we will get into CalSmart navigation. So what is CalSmart? CalSmart is our California State multimodal application and reporting tool, affectionately referred to as CalSmart. For those of you who have been around before, you know that this is the only system that we do both our reporting and our eligibility submittals through. It's the only acceptable method in which we will take any of the information that you are submitting. And it's how we're able to aggregate all of the information into some common sense data and share to the legislature. Where do you get the, okay, so we do have a question about where to get the original RMRA estimate. Love that you've asked that question. We are going to be covering that here in about 4 slides. Okay, so CalSmart again is the only acceptable method for the adopted list of proposed projects and expenditure reports. Reporting your fiscal year expenditure reporting cycle is now open. So just make sure that you know that in CalSmart it is open. If you have not registered, now is the time to do so. Again, we will try and get you approved as soon as possible. If it's not until after the training, we do apologize, but all hands are on deck right now who are a part of this program that would be able to approve your registration. One of the bonuses about CalSmart is that each agency can have multiple registered users. This means individually with your own email and your own password. So no email and password sharing is needed here. You're going to use your individual information to log in, create your own profile, and then you can access the same reporting and detail information. So if someone is ever gone, somebody's left, whatever it is, right? Somebody always will have access to the information. So here we go into the CalSmart navigation. And again, if you have not registered yet, please make sure to register first, and then we can assist you and log you in, because some people are saying that they can't access CalSmart right now, but when we look up their names, they don't actually exist in the system. So for current CalSmart users, the login is going to be the email and password that you used when you registered. I cannot stress this enough. If you have 2 failed attempts in logging in, please stop immediately and select forgot password and reset that password. Because if you do it a 3rd time, you will be locked out of the system. And if the account is locked, you need to send an email to us at lsr@catc.ca.gov. Because if you do not, we will not be notified that you've been locked out. And so therefore, we have no way to unlock you. Also, please note that the longer you wait and the further into the reporting period that this falls, that this issue may occur, the longer the response time may be, okay? So again, I cannot stress it enough. If you have 2 failed attempts, do not go for a 3rd try. If you have not yet registered, this is what your registration page will look like. You will just provide basic information, name, email, telephone number, your job title. Then you will, from the drop down, you'll be able to select your agency that you are representing. Then you need to select the program that you want to work within. Please only select the local streets and roads program. More than likely, this is the only program that you are going to be reporting on and working within. If you unnecessarily sign up for and register under any of the other programs that you see on that site, you will get a lot of erroneous notices, late reporting notices, open reporting notices. A lot of different things will come your way. It'll cause a lot of confusion. We have actually seen people create a report or a project request, thinking that they were creating and doing their proposal list. So please note, these are not the same things. They all work and function completely different, and can cause you a lot of headaches and heartaches if you sign up for things that you're not needed to be signing up for. So once you have completed your registration process, it's not quite complete, because you will get a registration email verification. If you do not verify your email on that email that you received, we will never get a notice saying that you have requested access, and we cannot go in through the back end of the system and approve you without that. It will not make you accessible to us. So please make sure that you are verifying your email using the registration email verification that you will receive. Once you have verified your email, you will, and we have approved you on our end, you will receive an account approval email. So I am about to get into the live presentation. Is there anyone struggling or having questions about just getting into CalSmart? All right, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and get started on our lovely CalSmart, but before I do that, we had a great question of how do I find out what our original estimate was for the fiscal year? This is where you're gonna go. You're gonna go to this website, and please note that in our handouts and on our resources tab in CalSmart, you have access to all of these websites. To be able to access the information, it's readily available to you. Please note, this is a third-party website. They are not affiliated with any state agency. We do not do, we cannot do the estimates as the state agency. We're not allowed to do the estimates in that way. So again, this is a third party that is hired on by the League of Cities. CSAC, the Council of Governments, they also do something very similar. So just know that these are all covered, but this particular one gives you both city and county estimates. So where it says hot topics, the second bullet says local streets and roads funds, HUDA and SB1. When you select that, you're gonna come down to where it says transportation funding sources. The second bullet is local streets and roads estimates, and you'll see it has the fiscal years on it. Once that comes up, you're just gonna go ahead and do a Control F search for your individual city or county, and you'll be able to see your information. Please note that that first column is always the highway user tax account. That is not the same as your RMRA funds, slash SB1 or LSR, whatever that is, right? And they're not the same, totally different. So in that second column is where you will see the estimates for the reporting year. And that is under the road maintenance and rehab account. So hopefully everybody has seen that. You have an idea of what that's going to look like for you. Next, we will go into the state controller's office to see how much did you receive in your funding. I'm going to go back to the homepage because I like to walk everybody through this because not a lot of people have the opportunity or need to navigate through the site. So on the state controller's homepage, you're going to go to state and local. Once you've selected state and local, you'll come down here to where it says local government, and we're going to select local government. Once you have done that, we're going to scroll down just a smidge, and now we're going to see apportionments. You want to select apportionments. Once you're on that page, we're going to scroll down until we see the road maintenance and rehabilitation account tab. And there we go. As you see, we have both cities and counties. I'm going to go ahead and select cities. And when you select cities, you're going to see the current fiscal year that you're in is right here, 25-26, but you don't need that right now. That's not what we're doing. We want to look at fiscal year 24-25. Once we've done that, you see allocation year to date. Please note for those of your finance teams that are here, your remittance advice is also identified here, which will reaffirm to you that the funds that you should be attributing to the, in this case, the 24-25 reporting year is your funding that you're receiving all the way from September to August. Okay. So once you hit year to date, this spreadsheet is going to appear. And then you can go ahead and select your individual city. And as you see, it shows September here, but I want you to see where it ends. Comes all the way down. Didn't mean to do that. And it goes all the way to August. So August 22nd was the day of your last apportionment being dispersed to you for the fiscal year that you're reporting on, okay? And then your total is down there. The reason why I'm showing you this is because when you get to our system for reporting, we are going to ask you to break it up between what you received from September to June and then what you received in July and August. And we're going to ask you to provide us those two totals. Why? Why do we ask you to do that? Because there's so much confusion with the reporting and what funds should be attributed to the fiscal year, that this is the surefire way that we can check against what you're reporting to us that you received and where maybe an issue or error is occurring. And usually where we see it is in those final 2 months. Now to CalSmart. So just for the purposes of our training right now, we are using our test site to be able to go through this whole live demonstration. Again, there's your forgot password section, if in case you forgot what your logout is or login. Let me go ahead and log in. And as you see, as soon as I've logged in, it's asking me to select the program that I would like to work within. Because if I went to help and resources tab right now, nothing's going to be in there. Why? Because I haven't selected the program I want to work in. So I'm going to come here, hit the drop down, and I'm going to select local streets and roads program. As you can see, I have a message that tells me that the expenditure reporting period I'm here to do is currently in place, right? We have it. And it is open. So the first thing I want to do, remember how I said exporting lists from the system is really going to help you prepare for your data collection. So here we go. We're going to select fiscal year proposed project submittals. I'm not going to select manage because I don't want to manage that. I want to go to my view proposed projects page. Once I've done that, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to come down to my select range, and I want to select for the 24-25 proposed project list. And as you see, this is what it brings me down to. We've narrowed it down to these 2 projects. And then I just hit export list to Excel. I can open it up. All right. And there's all the information that I need, right? So that was what I proposed for last fiscal year. The year in which we're reporting on, right? Now that I've done that, I want to come back up to my dashboard. You saw that dashboard on the top. And I want to go to expenditure reporting. I'm going to select that. I don't want to create just yet. I don't want to manage my previously proposed or expenditure report information. I want to go to my view expenditure report projects, just like I did. I just want to select the period because I already know what agency I'm in. I'm in my I'm going to LSR 23-24. I'm going to hit apply. And then I'm going to export the list to Excel. By doing this, I now know exactly what projects I am expected to account for in my reporting. And I can share this information with my public works team or with my finance team, and we can figure out what's the correct information to add, right? Customize it, add a column, whatever you need to do in order to be able to provide the detail that you need and update it accordingly. So once you've done all of that, you've gotten all the data that you need, which is what's all your expenditure detail, how much you received in the year, the project status updates. Now we're going to go back to our dashboard page. I always like to say go back to your dashboard page because everything's in there. And when I mean everything, I do mean everything, because then you also have your help and resources tab here. When we select on our help and resources tab, mind you, please, this is our test site, so all of this is not going to look the same as what's in your live site, but this is where we would have our technical training handout, which does walk you through step by step what I am going through right now for the live demonstration. So back to dashboard, I'm going to hit expenditure reporting. And what I would like to do is now create my expenditure report. Please note, you can only create one expenditure report. So once it's been created, you won't see this particular page again unless you expand and go in it through a different way. Everything is going to auto-populate based on what was last entered, okay? So if any of the information has to be updated, whether it's your address, your contact information, whatever it is, update it here. So now we're gonna get into where I took you to find all of your information, right? So we found out what our estimate was for the fiscal year. I'm gonna enter that in here. Our original estimate was a large number, 3.8 million. Let's see. Okay, good. Pull that one in. Sorry, when I work on this laptop, the screen's so small, it doesn't always fully fill in, so I do apologize for that. So the amount that the city received during that fiscal year portion in question, so this is what you received from September to June. We're gonna enter in that amount. And now I'm gonna go into the next amount, which is the remaining portion that came in July and August. And now you see that it shows that I had 4 million, dollars. So the total amounts in there. Now I'm gonna add interest. Let's say, just for purposes of right now, 0 interest on the current year. So we're just gonna say zero interest for the current year's apportionment amount that we received. This next portion down is interest accrued from the remaining funds. So this was the carryover fund from the prior year. What interest can we attribute to that? So because of the large number here, we're just gonna say 500,000. Again, this is just for purposes of this training. As you can see in our fields here, you have a without and with interest portion. So you can see the difference of what it looks like without interest and what it looks like with interest, okay? Why does it matter that you're accounting for the interest? Because whatever you say that was accrued in interest, that fund now that interest amount has to be used as is designated by the statute and the program guidelines. So it still must adhere to the same eligibility requirements for eligible use of funds. I see that we did get a question saying, I thought that we are primarily reporting on what we proposed last year, not what was reported on in prior years. As you will see, and many of you can attest to, a lot of these projects you're going to be reporting on for multiple years. They are multi-year funded projects, or because of the way that the schedule rolls out for these projects and the way that the construction cycle is. You have to report on them over multiple years. And relisting a project, readopting a project in your proposed project list is very, very common. Because you have to use multi-year funds in order to deliver it. And a lot of times jurisdictions don't want to overextend or overpromise projects. So they may only adopt 1 or 2 new projects and then relist a couple of other projects that they're expecting to have to use their armory funds for in the current fiscal year. So that's very, very common. So for the purposes of this training exercise, I'm just gonna go ahead and say that we spent $3 million in the reporting year. Actually, I'm gonna say 6 because I gotta get this numbered across multiple years. All right. Now we always get this question. So what you do see here is if you spent, I'm saying I spent 6 million of my RMRA funds in the reporting fiscal year. So that was July 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. You know what's great throughout this entire system is we redefine this every time. We provide the clarification and the parameters of what consists of the fiscal year and what needs to be captured throughout the entire reporting process, so it can help guide you as you go through, okay? So even if you didn't have these slides, you should still be able to navigate relatively easily what is needed from you and what qualifies. So average network PCI, your payment condition index. You don't have to report this. This isn't a mandatory reporting detail. As you notice, there's no asterisk there. Now, if you're someone with 80 or above for your PCI, we do ask that you report it, especially if you are going to be using your funding for other transportation priorities. So this means it's not standard rehab repair, you're doing a new asset. You're doing like a road diet project, you're doing something else, right? So it's not the standard deferred maintenance, it's not the rehab of eroding roadways. It's not that, right? You're actually creating a new asset. Choose files if you would like to select files to upload. This is not necessary during this portion. During our submittal process, you do have to upload documents. You don't have to upload documents here, but if you'd like to, you can. It can be, photos of your projects before and after if you want to do that. What we do commonly see people doing is uploading agreements for joint projects. So these are projects that they've entered into a joint agreement for, like maybe two cities or a city and a county may enter into an agreement. And so they're adding that language that, because it was a new project that came up that wasn't a part of the proposed project list submittal period, right? So it didn't get to be captured before. In which it's identified that this is a joint project and both entities are agreeing to cover their share. So this is where you would upload that so that we have a reference document of it and there's record to show that it was an open agreement. And that you're doing everything in conjunction with statute. So the summary of your fiscal year RMRA activity. Again, this is a really good one. This has been very, very useful for us. It's useful for us as a guiding tool as we go to review your projects that you've reported out on. You may say that we've done 10 projects this year and we spent $6 million. The remaining funds are being rolled over to fund a future project or several future projects in the coming year. If you are one of our small rural jurisdictions who is reserving their funds from year to year in order to deliver a future project, this is where you would highlight that and identify the type of project that you're going for and when we can expect it. So this is a really good tool and it is something that is mandatory that we request it be addressed. I cannot tell you how vital this information was, especially during COVID-19 impacts and as we were still recovering from COVID-19 in the construction realm. We were able to see that, a lot of you weren't able to move forward with a lot of projects because cost estimates have gone through the roof because materials increased so much or because labor force was down. And so you didn't have the labor force that was necessary in order to be able to deliver projects. So a lot of this is a very useful tool. Again, we can aggregate data so much to tell a story, but we also need your context. And it is incredibly helpful and useful for us as we go to explain what's going on with the program to the legislature and constituents when we are sought out for that information. So just for the purposes of this, I'm going to say here we go. All right, so I just said delivered 3 projects totaling 6 mil in RMRA funding. Remaining funds will be carried over for future priorities. Great, save and continue. So now that I've done that, you see I have fiscal year 23-24 expenditure report projects show up. But at the very, very top, you see it says 23-24 completed projects. Unless you are going to add additional funds being spent on a previously completed project, I would not add anything here, right? I wouldn't select it, I wouldn't do a drop down. But if you need to check it, I say check it. And the reason why I say check it is because there are times where something may show up as complete here, but it still showed up as proposed in the report, right? In the list that you sent for that reporting year. So the 24-25 list, the one that we're accounting for right now, you may have a completed project that you reported as completed in 23-24. So just for the sake of right now, because I want to show you how you add funds to a project previously completed, I'm going to go ahead and hit update. So now I've selected update. What automatically comes up from update is my 24-25 proposed project list. And here you go. I have a Torrance paving project. Oh no, I have another Torrance paving project. But is this the same paving project? No, it is not, right? So I know it's not because of the detail that's provided, but some of you may sit here and go, oh no, it's the same project. If you link this project inaccurately, so just for the purposes of today, I'm going to link it inaccurately. As you see, now that I've selected that project for linking purposes, the link project tab has now become enabled. I'm going to link it, select that. Now you see everything's been linked. But as I'm in here, I realize, oh, no. This is totally not the right project. I didn't mean to link this. I need to unlink it, right? So I have the ability where it says related proposed projects. I can select undo. I select undo. It's going to ask me if I'm sure. I say yes. All right, it's unlinked. All I need to do is just report on this project directly. Okay. The project had final closeout already, so we're all done. As you see, I can't go to next because it won't let me. It's letting me edit, but I need to add in that last little bit of payment that came through for 24-25. As you see down here at the bottom, it says not yet reported. So this is where I'm going to hit add. Now that I've done that, it is now taken me back to my completed page. So I'm completed in my pre-construction page. I don't need to add funding spent on the pre-construction page. And I hit save and continue. And now I'm back here. See how it didn't let me, because I needed to add something, whether it was 0 or nothing, right? So let's just say, oh, nope, I did have, let me just add 10,000. Actually, I'm going to say 1 million or I'm going to lose track of what I'm doing. All right, so 1 million there. Oh no, I have another error because why? Because now my total expenditures on this project is 2 million in $6, but I only have here total project cost as 1 million. $1,006,000, right? Well, here you go. I now need to update this, and let's just say everything was paid with RMRA. I'm gonna add that to be 2 million. I shouldn't have another error. Oh no, I added it to the wrong part. Do you see how fast this can go wrong, right? So I can hit save and continue. And I'll just put a 0 here for now. Because I realized I added that extra million to the wrong area. So I'm gonna hit save and continue. Now it's brought me back to my standard update page. I don't want to lose where I'm at. I don't want to forget the fact that I just messed up on project reporting. So I'm going to come back to my manage expenditure page. So I went up to the top where it said reporting. I'm going to hit manage expenditure reports. As you see here, City of Torrance, the current report that I'm working on has a triangle, little yellow thing. It's like yield. So I know, okay, this is the one I need to be in. I clicked on it. And now I see pre-construction and construction. All right. I'm going to hit view, which is the little eyeball towards the end. Select view. Great, we're in there. And come down. We got construction completed, but $0. And then I'm going to keep going. Oh gosh, what did I do? Oh, here it is. Pre-construction completed. I added $1 million there. That was the wrong spot. So I'm going to select view. And now I'm in it. I'm going to hit edit, not delete, because if you hit delete, you're going to cause a whole other world of problems. I'm going to go, okay, this was all wrong. That $1 million needed to be spent and reported on in the construction phase. I had $1 million left in closeout costs and construction phase, not here in pre-con. So I'm going to just put $0 there. Save and continue. Oh, my total project cost. No, it needs to go back to the $1.6 million. Remember how I changed it? So just the reason why I'm showing you this is to show you how easy it is to kind of lose track of where you're at and how easy it is for a problem to get bigger as you go through if we're not careful as we're entering in the information. So we're going to hit save and continue. Great. Now I'm back to save and continue. Expenditure report detail. Nope. All right. All good. I don't want to hit anything else. So now I'm going to go back to reporting. This is going to seem crazy that you've got to go back, but it's the easiest way to do it without causing too many issues and error codes on the system. So now I want to see the construction component. That's where I needed to add my $1 million. I'm going to come back. We're going to do the same process all over again. We're going to go to view construction completed because we're not hitting edit because we're not editing anything else on this page. We're just hitting the view on where the expenditure detail is. So now I've hit view and I'm going to come in here. This is what I'm going to edit. I'm going to add my 1 million here. There we go. This is still right. That 3 million for cost. Great. I don't need to change that. Now I'm going to hit save and continue. And it let me do it without any errors. Wonderful. Now we go back to reporting. Now we're going to go back to manage expenditures. And now you guys are going to say, okay, but Alicia, how do we get back to all those projects that were already on the list that we started reporting on, but now we're not there anymore? Very simple. We're going to go to project reporting. Now that you've selected this, wonderful news. We don't, if you notice the completed projects tab that was up there at the very beginning, it's no longer in existence, right? That's not there anymore. So now we're going to hit update on the 37th Street sidewalks, that project. I'm going to look here and yep, that is the same 37th Street sidewalks project I need to report on. So I'm going to click yes on that, check that box, and now we're going to link. As you see, all the information has carried over along with the component detail, everything's in there. If there's anything I want to add, I can add here for my description fields, but I don't feel like there's anything additional that I need to add. As you see, I have additional project elements. If you're questioning what those are by hovering, I swear in the last training session it worked. Sometimes it likes to work, sometimes it doesn't. But if you hover over the question mark, usually a description of that field is going to come up, which explains what the additional project elements are. As you see, I selected yes, I'm doing complete streets. Why am I saying it's complete streets additional elements? Because it's a sidewalk project and sidewalk projects constitute complete streets. This is where there's a new feature that you didn't see prior. Is this project eligible for emergency repair reimbursement or part of disaster recovery? We are a land of earthquakes, fires, and floods, right? We've got mudslides, rock slides, we have emergency like erosion projects that occur because of heavy rains. That create risks of slides. And so if there was an emergency declared in your area and you're eligible to receive and anticipate that you will be receiving reimbursement from the Fed or the state regarding the project, and you've applied for that, right? So it can't be something that you deem as an emergency project because of a water main leak. This would be something that is constituted as a disaster and you are now eligible to receive reimbursement for it. You can front load that project using your RMRA funds. And so a lot of times what we do see our jurisdictions doing is, let's say, up to 75% of an overall project cost is going to be covered by reimbursement by the federal or the state for emergency relief or disaster recovery. Okay. So that means 25% of your funds aren't going to be reimbursed. That RMRA apportionment that you have that maybe you put towards the project, you would not claim more than 25% until after final closeout. So that means that you would say we only used for this total project cost of whatever 25% is of a couple of million, this is how much we used of RMRA funds, right? And once you hit final closeout, if you receive that total 75%, right, you're good to go. But let's say you get less than you expected, or the overall project cost went up. And so now your RMRA expenditures are going to be a little bit more, right? You have the opportunity to add on the RMRA funding that you're claiming as expended. What you can't do, and this is a problem that we ran in before, where someone will say, oh, we used 100%, this was 100% funded with RMRA funds, and then they received the reimbursement from the Fed or the state. And then they come back to us and say, oh, hey, we reported this wrong because we got reimbursed, and so now the money's back in our RMRA pot, we only used 25% of it. Well, we can't necessarily reverse that on a previously reported out document. And there's no way in our system to reverse it other than for us to have to clear out the whole thing and then start back over on your reporting. So on a case by case, basis, contact us if those issues do arise and we will work with you to resolve the issue. But I cannot stress enough, like, err on the side of caution. You only report as expending, what is up to the amount that they say that they are going to reimburse, right? And then that 25% of that pot, that RMRA, you hold still with that. And then if that changes at all, fluctuates up, down, whatever it is, we can address it there. It's far better to do that than to say the whole thing was RMRA funded in one report and then the next report say, oh, no, it was only 25% of that, right? So for continuity's sake and for overall transparency, this is really the best way that we ask for you to report to us. Now, when you select if this project is, right, eligible, you say yes, it's going to ask you the type of emergency or disaster. Fire, earthquake, flood. Those are the most common. Other is where you're gonna see things like, landslides, rock slides, things of that nature. So you're gonna select other, and then you'll have a field that comes up to where you can identify what it is. If it's to be determined, you're still gonna be able to ask or you're gonna be asked to identify the type of disaster, right? And if it's no, you just go to no, and it closes up, but it does have to be addressed. Again, the reason why we are putting this in here now, and we needed to update our information to be able to capture this, is simply because as time is going on, we are seeing more and more and more of you needing to use your RMRA funds in order to jumpstart disaster recovery and emergency repairs due to disaster. So we want to make sure that you know that, number one, that is eligible, and number two, what is a good way for us to accurately reflect this? And this will allow us to collect consistent data that helps us show that information. So now I'm moving on, and I'm going to report out on what I did this year. I hit save and continue. Now this has taken me to the priority status page. And I'm just gonna say that this project is now complete because we had it as completing, previously. So we're gonna say this is completed. Gonna ask us how much we spent. I'm gonna say that we spent 2 million here. All right, in our armory funds. Now it's gonna ask me what the original. So just a reminder, what we're talking about when we say emergency repair, this is emergency relief projects, disaster relief repair projects. So if a state of emergency was declared, state or federal, and then you are then eligible to apply for reimbursement for federal funding or state funding to help you recover for that work and to make that repair, that's what we're referring to. And so again, if you have any questions about that, and need to seek out what that looks like, there are definitions online. We can also help guide you to websites to look into what is eligible and if you need to seek eligibility, but you're internally, someone within your city or county should be able to have that information as well. Okay, so original project cost. We are going to say this original estimate was a $5 million project. But we're going to say the total project cost was 6 million because, everything's more expensive these days. So we have that in there. If I want to add additional information on what the project costs or additional information about the other funding sources for the project costs, I could say, local measure, state match, whatever it is. HUDA, let's just say it's HUDA and general funds in addition to our, right? Great. So again, we want to see what is the total value of that asset. So when did this project actually complete? We are going to say it completed in July of 24. Where you go, July 17th of 2024, because the last one was an estimate. And now this is where we would come into, this is where you're going to report your total outputs and outcomes. So I'm going to select total paving rehab repair. I'm going to put in here 3.0 for 3 miles. 88 curb ramps. Let's say they were 30 because I don't know, two ramps per corner, 4 corners throughout. That's going to be a lot of 88 curb ramps, right? Was there any bicycle lane or rehab repair? I could add that in there, landscape maintenance, if I wanted to add that in there if it was needed. Safety improvements, yep, there were safety improvements in there. For paving and striping. All 3 miles had to have that. How many signals and lights did we update? Let's just say we did 15 as a part of this. In total, overall the sidewalks consisted of 2 miles of the overall work. I think that's a lot, but also, if there were new improvements, did you install anything new? Is there a new ADA curb ramp? New storm drain culvert replacement. So you can add all of that in there. We allow you to identify both new and rehab repair. And so you can see I still have my message in here that says the project completed in July 2024 and we are pending final closeout. We'll determine if any additional, I don't need that information there. That was a helpful tool to notify the CTC staff of what they could expect the coming year. Now we're going to hit save and continue. Now I have one project left here. All right, so that's the fiscal year 23-24 citywide pavement rehab project. It's procurement, operational need. All that. This project does not need to be linked to anything. I don't see it needing to be linked. So I'm going to skip linking here and I'm just going to go straight to the project reporting. I don't need to add anything here. Everything else has already been identified. I'm going to keep going through. Yes, we have sustainability. This, I'm going to just go ahead and select no. It wasn't a part of an emergency project. Here, I'm going to change my status to complete. So again, this is going to give you another completed project. I'm going to say I spent another $1 million here. I don't think I need to add anything in there. The completion date's accurate because it was from what was estimated. Great, looks good. Now I'm just going to go ahead. I don't need to actually add counts. I know it says to do it, but you don't need to. We did staffing, materials, equipment was purchased for this. Also, I think we're good. And it was just labor force. Yeah. City labor force performed work and purchased materials for manual work. All right, now we're going to hit save and continue. And as you see, all of my 24-25 proposed projects are now here. One has already completed. I'm no longer being shown the 23-24 expenditure reporting. And I'm going to pick back up to the Torrance paving project. Is this project still active? Do we want to? What are we gonna do here? Right? What do I need to do here? What is a part of it? What if, just what if, this project was no longer RMRA funded, right? We're not using RMRA funds on this in any capacity now. We have other funding sources that were used to be able to deliver it, so we don't need to report on it. We would select no longer RMRA funded. what you would see coming out of this is you still have to fill in because it was proposed, you still are gonna have to provide whatever your congressional district is. You're still gonna have to answer the questions that are on here. I'm gonna change this to no because I'm not delivering the project anymore. Unclick. No, save and continue. Why? What's the additional information? You have to identify this here, right? We could say due to the delays, other source funding was used to allow the city to prioritize armory funds on other projects that came up during the reporting year. Right, that's perfect. We don't need to add more than that. We're gonna hit save and continue. And now all of our projects are accounted for. Everything is disabled, right? 'Cause you can't do anything else. So now we're gonna hit reporting. Just a note, if you go to create expenditure report again, all it's gonna do is take you to manage expenditure report where it is telling you, oh, you already have this here. So if we want to, let's just say we want to look at what we already entered in here just to make sure everything's correct. We think we're done. We're going through. Yep, all that looks good. All that looks good. Okay, I said I spent 6 million on 3 projects. We delivered 3 projects. Did we deliver 3 projects? Or did we just work on 3 projects? You can deal with that later. All right, so again, but remember I said 6 million spent over 3 projects. Save. Now I'm going to come here to expand. And I see I have 3 projects, but it's only totaling 4 million. What did I do? There's an error, right? That's got to be an error. This is a way I can check this and make sure. Did I not count everything? Am I saying I reported too much? So this is where you would kind of flag something. There's an easy way to do this as well by going to create PDF here. You're going to select that. A PDF will be created and you can look at it all in one. Here's my 6 million. I said that we spent over 3 projects. I did report on 3 projects, but I'm only reporting 4 million being spent, as you see here. Well, you know what? This looks fine. It's good enough to me. It's not a big deal. I'm just going to go ahead and hit submit. I can't because what I said I spent in that intake page does not match what I had input into the system. So now I have to hit back. I'm going to go back to that page. Do I know what the issue is? Off the top of my head, no. It's the day to submit. I need to submit. Can I send it to and make a correction to make it submittable so that I can send it off to CTC and meet the deadline? The answer is yes. Just do that and tell us that there's a problem and you need to fix it, and we will send it back to you. But now you've met the deadline of your reporting requirement, and we can sit there and work with you in the edits to figure out where your issue is, or while you have the time to work with your finance department to figure out where the issue is. You've met our deadline. Now we're going to work on the edits with you. And we have about 6 to 8 weeks to get those edits finalized and completed before we need to start reporting them out. So this is where I kind of want to give you you can take a deep breath. It's okay. Let's say I was wrong and it was 4 projects that we actually were working on. And I now realized, after reading that PDF, I realized where my error is. I need to add a new project. So we're just going to say ABC Avenue. Actually, we'll just do that because I have pre-fills. All right. We have this as fiscal year 25-26, but we're just gonna make this as fiscal year 24-25. This is just standard road maintenance. I don't know what I just said. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. So road maintenance, and I'm gonna make this procurement and operational needs just for the ease of reporting right now. And I'm gonna say that we purchased equipment, materials, and we use this for our public works staffing that are performing the work of this annual maintenance. Again, just gonna fill these in like that. So project location, oh my gosh, how convenient. Procurement operational need, I can say that this is a citywide project. Citywide as needed maintenance. All right. No for this, no for disaster relief. I'm gonna hit save and continue. We were gonna say that this was in progress. So remember how I was at 4 million earlier? Well, this is where that other 2 million is to hit that 6 million that I said I spent in the year. There is no award date because it's my own program staff, right? We're gonna say that this project started 07 01 2024. And it's not expected to complete until, or it is completed, but you know, we're gonna say August 19th of 2025. So it's completed, but I can't report it as complete. So I'm just gonna call it the estimated completion date, and it's in progress. My estimated total project cost for this is 3 million. Now, additional information I can add in here. Project completed in August 2025. And final closeout and status will be provided in next expenditure report. Now I'm going to hit save and continue. Takes me back to my project reporting page, even though all I did was add a new project. I'm going to come back here to reporting, hit my manage expenditures. Now I can create another PDF to see like, okay, is this accurate now? I do see that I hit my 6 million. I don't need to add any more projects. If I'm unsure if I've reported on all my projects, I can hit the project reporting page, but you shouldn't need to, because if you hit submit and you haven't reported on all your projects, it's not gonna let you, it'll show you an error message like the last time. So now we're gonna hit submit. You wouldn't even get to this page if there was an error. So now we're gonna hit submit, and what you will see here is a blue clock that shows that we've received it and we will start reviewing it. Are there any questions on expenditure reporting through the live system? Or did I put you all asleep? I thought it was a thrilling portion of the presentation. Okay. Thank you, Kim. All right, so let's get going into our frequently asked questions. And a lot of this is just gonna be a little repetitive, right? So, oh, could I please repeat the original RMRA versus actual received? So are you talking about the original estimate versus the actual? Okay, so real quickly, I'll just take you all through that. Yeah. Okay, so when you're looking for your original estimate amount, you're gonna go to a website that's called the California Local Government Almanac, Finance Almanac. You will, it says hot topics. You're gonna go to the second bullet. Once you're there, you'll see transportation funding sources smack dab in the middle of the page. Second bullet there, local streets and roads, estimates, PDF will appear, and that's where you'll be able to find the estimate that you had for 24-25. Okay. Now to find what you actually received, again, your finance division should have all of this information readily available to them. But you will go to where it says state and local on the state controller's website, okay? You're under local government. You'll click apportionments. Scroll down to where it says road maintenance and rehabilitation account, whether it's cities or counties. If you're a city, you're gonna select city. If you're counties, you're gonna select counties. You will select fiscal year 24-25 because that's your reporting year. And you want to select allocation year to date. This is going to tell you exactly how much you received for the entirety of the fiscal year. This is where everybody gets confused because what they see in that very first month is September. That is essentially your July 1 payment. It just doesn't get to you until it's been rectified, and that is in September. You will scroll down and you will be able to see what your total amount is that you received through the entirety of the fiscal year. As you see, they are monthly disbursements, all the way going from September to August. Mid-August is right about the time, so August 22nd, almost every year between the 20th and the 22nd is when that final disbursement hits your local account, okay? And that's where you're gonna find that information. Right, hopefully that helps. So back to the frequently asked questions. Again, no RMRA funds were spent in the reporting fiscal year. Do we still need to submit the expenditure report? Yes, 100% yes. There's no way around it. Again, we've achieved 100% reporting compliance. This is critical to the success of the program as a whole. Part of the requirements of these SB1 funds is that there is transparency and accountability, right? So the transparency and accountability portion of that is not only how you get your funding, seeking eligibility, following the steps to become eligible each year, but also the transparency of where did these funds actually go, and holding yourselves accountable for tracking the funds and being able to convey not only to your own constituency what's happening with the fund that essentially they pay into, and so this is a return on their investment from the pump, right? That they are supposed to be able to see locally within their own communities. And so this is where we're able to convey that information. I can tell you that 2 years ago, we at the CTC, the entirety of the program was audited. It selected the legislature selected 6 cities to individually audit and review as a part of this program. CTC was audited, and then the state controller's office and for their role and portion of the program were audited. And we at the CTC passed with flying colors. We actually got to leave out of that audit with best business practices and recommendations being appreciated and applauded. And a lot of that has to do with our ability to work with each and every one of you to provide technical assistance and ensure that this information is being shared as accurately as possible, and that there's continuity and consistency throughout in the reporting. So kudos to all of you for your hard work. And the first step of that hard work is you attending these trainings to ensure that you're doing this properly. So if you didn't spend anything, what are you reporting on? Essentially, you're reporting on the scope and statuses of the projects, where the intended funding is going to go, for what purposes, what priorities are there still selected, and when can we see those actually come into fruition. What is really telling here is that in our local jurisdictions, especially for our small rural cities and towns, it takes multiple cycles for you to be able to utilize your funding in a meaningful way. And we understand that. So we don't necessarily see red flags when no money is being spent, but we are looking at what you are putting in that summary activity to explain why there's no funds being spent, right? So if we don't see that, now we have a red flag, now we have an area of concern. If you have removed all of your projects and you have nothing in there for the future years to say, oh, this is where we intend for the funds to go, that is also going to be a red flag, where we are going to contact you and say something must exist here for you to be able to convey to the public where you intend for these funds to go. What if a project is listed in both the prior fiscal year and reporting fiscal year project list? We showed you exactly what to do and how to link it, right? Don't link what's not necessary to be linked. There are ways to undo things. There are ways to fix errors in the system. But you have to be aware that that error is existing. Again, this is one of the reasons why we say create your own unique identifier within the system. There's a way for you to be able to do that for each project. If there's an internal identifier code that you use to track projects, that would be what I would suggest that you use, so that it's universal throughout, regardless as to if it's the same person doing the report every year or if somebody else has to jump in and take it over, okay? I'm not going to get into the second portion of that because it all kind of ties in, and it's not as relevant now as it was in years past. Now that we've gotten so far through the cycle, it sort of has changed. We're so many cycles in that you're not seeing this issue as we move forward as much. Why are we being asked to record the interest? Again, I cannot stress this enough. Your individual funding source has a strict criteria of what is eligible for use using that fund. And that extends to the interest that is accrued, right? You wouldn't have that money if it wasn't for the funding source that was sitting in your account accruing interest. Therefore, that money needs to be used, that interest needs to be used in accordance with statute and guidelines. Negative interest, I'm not gonna really get into that. That is a very specific and unique sort of niche thing that more has to do with like finance reporting. This is not a finance report. This is a overall sort of what we did activity, identify specific projects kind of report, and then just give us a summary of how much you used on one specific funding source, right? We want to see big picture, what the total cost of a project was, right? All funding sources, but you don't have to name those out individually. You don't have to track down to dollars and cents on certain things. That's a totally different report that goes to the state controller's office. We are not the CPAs. We are not the ones doing that. Okay. This is very much so a project specific report that is tied into a very niche funding source. Then we identify how to report your. So again, I walked you through what it's like if you get out of CalSmart before you're done reporting. If you end up by having to backtrack, something like that, and you have to jump back into the system, how to be able to go back and get into the list of projects that you have to account for simply just by selecting project reporting, okay? On the manage expenditure reports page. This is actually something that came up in our last training session, so I want to reiterate it here and really highlight it. This is a situation about keeping Huda and Armory funds in the same account. How are you supposed to separate out the interest? And so we do lean to the state controller's office for their guidance on that. There should have been some established methodology with regards to interest earnings and allocations. Many calculate interest on a quarterly basis, on monthly. And so how you do that is going to be up to you. But what you need to do is ensure that, the coding of the two fund sources are sort of different. They can be in the same account if you're not separating them. So they can technically be in the same account, but you have to have a coding system in place to be able to track the two funds separately so that you know what is the balance for each and what interest applies to which, okay? And again, if you need further guidance on that, the state controller's office can assist your finance department. Cannot say this enough. Your finance team and your public works team should both be doing this project in tandem for the reporting, okay? Like they go hand in hand. Also, your finance team is doing an annual streets and roads report at the same time they're gathering the information. That is very specific finance reporting that is going directly to state controller's office. The only similarity in there is that you're going to be asked to account for RMRA specifically in ours, as well as RMRA in their report. Again, but that's not the only funding source that you're identifying in their report, right? Ours, we're just asking specifically for RMRA. And we ask for specific project details. They just ask for categories. I'm not gonna get into this one too much because I think this is actually, never mind, I lied. I am gonna get into this one because there was a good question about this. Yes, in the earlier session. So a project was reported as in progress in the prior fiscal year and has since been completed. Can I report on that or do I need to create a new project? So we've actually seen people do this where they create a new project because for whatever reason, they don't think that they can continue reporting on a project that was previously in progress. Despite all of our best efforts in our trainings. So you can, if needed, you can link the project. If you don't need to link the project, you just skip linking and you report on it directly from the last status that was given and you update it accordingly, right? So if it completed, you're going to change it to complete and you have to make sure that that completion date falls within the fiscal year so that it's allowed to be identified as completed. And so you'll update it from there. This just kind of goes over what you're allowed to update and what you can't update based on the status. Most of the information can be updated regardless of status minus complete, right? You're not gonna, in progress projects, you can't change the start date of the project because that's already been recorded. You can't change what you spent in a prior year, right? Okay, so we have a really good question that just came in. So, does CalSmart allow for partial input and saving to be continued later on? For example, if finance users input financials, then your public works users are including the project details. What I would recommend is the project works officials include all the project detail first. And they go in and you include everything there and then you put zeros for the dollar amounts spent on those projects. And then your finance team goes in and you'll have an ability to hit edit, update. I showed you how to do that using the little eyeball feature. You hit view and then you can go down and hit edit and you can add and update information as needed because you haven't submitted it to us yet. And our slides in the handout there are actually page by page screenshots that kind of walk you through this process as well. And so you can actually get in there and then they can add in how much was spent on that project within the reporting year. And then whatever is done, they can do. You can put placeholders in that intake and putting, zeros across the board, but you have to make sure that someone is inputting the intake page and they're updating it and editing it accurately to show this is how much they're saying was received, all the interest, and then what was spent in the fiscal year. Because if that does not add up to what has all been put into the individual projects at the time that you go to submit, it is going to create an error. And then we will all have to work together to go back through the system to figure out where that error occurred, which project was it specifically. The other thing is, if you're rounding up when you're putting things in and you're not putting anything in by cents in the, you're not including the cents in the initial intake page, but then when you go into the reporting page, you're including the cents. And so then that total doesn't tally up to the same amount, right? You're gonna have an issue. So be consistent throughout. Consistency is key in this, okay? I hope that answers that question. Again, this is more for the finance side and for those of you in public works to understand, but again, common issue that we have. That those payments received between July and August can't be, or the ones received in July and August can't be counted towards reporting fiscal year because they received them in the current fiscal cycle. And they want to know if that's true. No, that's not true. Like I said, there's remittance advice that has already been posted on the state controller's website that states that those funds that are received in July and August must be attributed to the prior fiscal year because they are revenues that were collected in the prior fiscal year. So they always have to be attributed to the prior. So again, is there anything that you can't change and complete? All of the detail. The only thing that you can change in completed projects from a prior year is just adding additional RMRA funds and total project cost. Oh, this is the reimbursement one. We covered this in depth, but again, this will just kind of cover how you're able to do reimbursement reporting in the case of emergency repairs when you're getting funding, right, from state or fed. These are also going to be links that are identified in the resources pages of this training. But as you see, this is where you will go to get your information regarding how much you received in the year and then the remittance advice. This is the link to where to get the estimates. And we give you the little visuals to help you identify it because I know that there's a lot that you have to click through. And then here are our resources, right? So all the resources that you have at your fingertips from us, state controller's office, the statute that guides us, as well as the division of audits, and then the local government service divisions of apportionments, CSAC, the league, and then the California Local Finance Almanac. And we would like to thank you for all of your time and encourage you to ask any questions that you may have. We're ending roughly 30 minutes early. So we will sit on the line for another 10 should there be any questions. If not, please feel free to regain some of your time, take it back and make the best of it as you can. And a reminder, yes, we are going to publish one of the 2 recordings from today. It usually takes a day or 2 to be able to do. And then we will also include a list of frequently asked questions and a copy of the handouts with all the screenshots from the live demonstration. So again, we will just sit on here for we'll get off of at about 3 after 3. Feel free to go if you'd like to, or if you'd like to ask a few questions, we're here to answer them. Thank you again for all of your time. Okay, so we just got a question, asking for the fiscal year 25-26 SB1 project submittal process, how do they go about adding an additional project to their existing list for the funding cycle? You're not gonna be able to do that right now. That won't happen until next year's expenditure reporting. Because what is on the proposed project list that are published are to be a direct reflection of what was adopted at your city council or county board meeting of lists that were eligible and intended to use the funding. And so those need to mirror each other, and if they do not mirror each other, then there's an issue with the proposed lists that are published. And they need to stay consistent. You have the ability to add priorities if they come up after. And so that's where you'll do it is next year's expenditure report. I hope that answers your question. And yeah, just a reminder, we will send out a link to this training once the recording has been published.